Welcome back, folks. I don't have all the parts I need to finish this Telecaster today, but I'm going to go ahead and get it to the point you're seeing here. So follow along as we do that. So a little bit about the parts I've got here. This is a Cedar body, and it's been stained and coated with a little bit of lacquer. I get these bodies off of eBay from a guy named No Moon Laser. So that's a pretty cool. It's a pretty cool style, and it's a nice light body, and it's nice and resonant. So I think it's going to work out well. The neck I've got, the neck is a made in Mexico squire neck, which is kind of a weird oddity, but I got a good price on it. And the made in Mexico squire necks are just the same as their Fender counterparts. Most of the Squire stuff that came out, they used cheaper parts to assemble the guitars. So this one did not come with these tuners originally. It came with those diagonally mounted, you know, weird, cheap style Asian tuners. Somebody's put these nice sort of vintage, you know, inline Clusen style tuners on it. In fact, I don't know why, but one of them actually is a Clusen tuner and the rest of them are not. And there's a couple different styles on here. You can see the heights kind of, I don't know if you can see that or not, but the heights kind of go up and down. But anyway, it's a cool look. I did clean up the fretboard a little bit. Underneath these tuners was a mess of different holes, and I filled some of those, and I went ahead and filled the neck holes so that I could re-drill. So anyway, gonna remount this thing today. I do have a bridge plate. I don't have the whole bridge yet. Got a neck plate that I'm gonna use. Got a few other things. String ferrules. So we'll get some of these parts mounted and see how it goes. First thing I'll do, just because it's easy, is mount the string ferrules. They're just a push fit. And the holes that are usually drilled in these Barncaster bodies aren't perfect, but they still press fit pretty well. So these things should not fall out while I don't have strings in it. So the next thing I think I'll do is mount the neck. I usually do this with, well, for one thing, these holes are pre-drilled in this body, which makes it a lot easier. If you don't have that, then just set your neck plate up on the body roughly where you think the holes should go, and that way you can mark where your screw holes should start. Then you'll need to make sure you drill these holes perfectly perpendicular to the face of the body. The drill press works best for that, but if you don't have one, you know, you can do it with a steady hand and a drill. It just takes some effort. But I don't have to go through that, thankfully. So what I usually do is just fit the neck into the neck pocket, and I try to get it flush with this side of the body where there's the most contact if I can, and get it as far down into this neck pocket as I can as well. Then I'll use a clamp to hold it in place. So that's what I'm working with. I'm going to be able to get to these two holes with that arrangement. Just double check how the alignment is here at this joint, because you don't want your hand catching on a lip there if you can avoid it. And then I've got a drill, and I've got an 1/8 inch long bit, and I've got it marked. And what I did to mark that was I used a piece of masking tape here, and I just held up a neck screw to it and make sure that I mark it at the point where I need to stop drilling. And then I double check and make sure that if I drill that far into the body, that I'm not going to drill through the end of my neck. The worst thing in the world would be drilling all the way through and having holes in the face of your neck because you didn't stop the drill bit. So that's pretty much it. Now, this drill bit is 1/8 of an inch, That's a Fender standard. Now if you're working with a Squire screw or something like that, you may need to use a different size, but I'm using Mexican Fender screws, which are the same as the US screws. So 1/8 of an inch hole is what you use to drill the pilot hole for the neck screw. And then what they want you to do, usually the specs say to make the body holes 3/16. I can tell right now these are not 3/16 yet, but since they're a little bit small, they'll help me serve as a drill guide to make sure my drilling is straight for my neck screws. So there's not much to this. It's really just a process of drilling in until you get to your tape mark and then stopping. Okay, now once these two sides are drilled, I can switch my clamp over to the other side, or I could put my neck plate on and go ahead and mount these two screws and then finish drilling that way when the other two sides are open. But I think I'll just switch my clamp now. Okay, so that's it for drilling the neck holes, the pilot holes in the neck anyway, and I'm going to now switch and enlarge the holes in the body. So I mentioned that the holes in the body need to be 3/16. You could go a little bit smaller. I think 11/64 will work. The point is that this screw is supposed to pass freely through the body and not bite, and right now it won't even go in that hole, so I've got to enlarge these a little bit. I think these bodies are sort of pre-drilled with a little bit less than the normal size screw, just because it's more of a suggestion for you to be able to use the holes as a guide. So what I'll normally do, especially when I'm drilling into a finished body, is I will start the drill in reverse, and I'll sometimes do that on the inside of these holes like this, just to make sure I don't get a lot of splitting. So now I just kind of got these holes loosely started. By starting the drill in reverse, that just makes sure that I don't get a lot of tear out on the face. And when I do it on the back side, it's to make sure that I don't chip the finish. Now I can go in the correct direction. Okay, let's see how I did. Yeah, see, pretty good. No tear out on the inside. The holes are clean, and the screw passes right through. But the nice thing is, like with the holes at this size, the screw doesn't wobble around a whole lot, and it's just enough wiggle room that if I want to adjust the neck slightly one way or the other, I can tweak it in the hole just a little bit before I tighten the screws down. Just one more thing I'll mention before I actually start doing this. I pre-fit all my screws in my neck plate before I actually start doing the mounting, and the reason is I want to make sure that the screws don't protrude or have an edge on the joint where they meet the neck plate, because these neck plates are drilled in a way that the screws actually fit down inside. They're not just countersunk, they're countersunk, and then there's a little straight lip that's supposed to keep the edge of the screw from showing at all. So it's kind of cool. But if I don't have a good fit where they fit all the way down inside, I'll sometimes chuck the screw up in a drill and then spin the edge against a file and just kind of get the edge ground down a little bit. But I've done that to all four of these, and now they fit down inside there, and they make good contact, but they don't have a lip at the edge. I also kind of pre-aged this old Squire neck plate. I kind of did a little bit of a satin finish on it. I took a green Scotch-Brite and some oil and just kind of went over the whole thing and did little circles in different random directions, and so that kind of knocked the shine down. I wanted to do that because it matches the finish that was naturally worn down on these tuners here. So I'm doing that on all my parts. I actually have done that on my bridge as well, but that's just something that I'm doing for style. Okay, well, to mount this neck, there's not much to it. Just toss it down in the pocket. I like to mount necks with the guitar standing up, just because it makes sure that that neck is forced down in the pocket as much as it can be. And then I'll hold it with my left hand in the pocket where I want it to be. Now, the first time you mount this, since you've just made pilot holes, it's going to be a little difficult for the screw to go into the neck, because maple is a hardwood and you're basically enlarging the hole as you continue to screw this in. But just make sure you get it all the way seated. Another thing that I like to do is tighten these in an X pattern, and I don't know if there's really a good reason for that other than it helps me keep my neck plate aligned as I'm tightening the screws. Okay, so she's mounted. One thing I probably will end up doing as I build this guitar is taking this neck on and off a couple of times. And so it doesn't have to be super tight the first time I do it, but when I'm ready to, like, string up the guitar, I will make sure that this thing's really good and tight. Okay, so when it comes to positioning the bridge, I've already got a route here for my pickup, so that helps me position some. But I also have my guide holes drilled for my strings, and I've also got, you really can't probably see them in here, but I've got these little tiny indentions where the maker of the body suggested that I mount the bridge. So what I'll be doing is mainly trying to hit those guide holes for the strings with my bridge, and I'll follow the suggested mounting holes for the screws as much as I can. Now, I would normally use double-sided tape, but I've got a few pieces of masking tape just doubled over that I'm going to use to help me keep my place on the body as I position the bridge. That ought to do the trick. Okay, that's where I want it. In that spot, I'm lined up with all 6 of those body through, string through body holes, and I've got the indentations where the maker of the body placed the suggestions for the bridge screws in the holes. I think what I'll do now is I'm going to get a punch and make the suggested divots for these holes a little bit bigger, make sure they're centered, and then I'll go ahead and drill. Okay, so same as with my neck holes, I'm going to use a piece of masking tape to keep the drill from going too far. Okay, well, this was a brand new bridge when I got it. I took the saddles off to use on another project, and I've got a set of compensated saddles that are coming for this thing. I went ahead and, like I said, scratched this thing up with a little bit of Scotch-Brite to make it look a little bit older. And I've used some really old screws. These screws, I don't know where they came from originally. I think they probably came from strap buttons or something, but they're not quite matching up. Like these US made screws are not quite matching up with this Asian bridge. So I may do a little bit of filing to the bridge holes themselves to get these things to seat a little better, but they're in the right spots, and that's exactly where I want the bridge positioned, so I think we're okay, or at least we're on the right track. Now, I do have to take this bridge off again. One thing about Telecaster pickups is they need to go in before the bridge goes on the guitar, so I have to take them off. I have to take this thing off at least once. Alright, so strap buttons. So a lot of guys would just wing this and try to get it eyeballed and close enough. For this bottom strap button, it really bothers me when it's not centered, so I'm going to show you how I do that. Let's see, so I start with a piece of masking tape, and I'm basically going to sight down the entire length of the neck. So this strap button is going to be precisely centered to this guitar. You know, there could be slight variances in the direction of the neck or the position of the bridge. I'm taking all that into account with this method. So I just basically am going to line up one edge of this masking tape with the exact center of the nut. And then I'm going to continue that line all the way down through the center of the dot markers on the neck and the center of the bridge. And if I keep my tension all the way toward the back of the body here, I know that I've got a line that goes exactly through the center of all of these points. So I've got the center of the nut, the center of all these dot markers on the neck, and the center hole in the bridge that is used for that saddle. So that right there, that edge, is the center of my body. And if I tear this masking tape off, I can carry that line around. And now I know I've got the center right there. And again, don't forget you're using the edge. So it's not the center of the masking tape there where I'm going to make a drill mark for my strap button. It's the edge. Just to make sure I don't mess that up, I'm going to put another piece this direction, and I'm going to try to find the center from top to bottom of the body and place my pilot hole there. Okay, so I carried that line around. I just tore off the excess tape here, but I carried that line around the body. Then I put a piece of masking tape over the top this way, and now I marked the edge of that masking tape where that line was for the center, and then I measured the center and made an X. Measured the center in this direction and made an X that way. So now I just need to take a center punch and mark that spot for my pilot hole. Alright, now I've got a pilot marked, and I can remove the tape. So that is the center where my strap button goes. So drilling this hole is fairly similar to the bridge holes. I think it's even the same size screw. So I'm just going to use the same bit and the same tape mark that I used previously. These strap buttons that I'm using are real Fender strap buttons, and I've also got a Fender felt. None of that's important, I'm sure, to most of you, but to the build, it means that I'm using mostly Fender parts. The string ferrules are Fender. The bridge is a Squier, but you know, also Fender. And the pickups that I'm going to be using in this thing are all Fender pickups, and most of them are Fender American pickups. So I'm going for quality on this, even though it's got the Squier nameplate all over the place. It's the best parts that I could find for it. Let's move on to this top button. Now, this top button, unlike the bridge button down here, or the bottom button, you have to kind of eyeball this top button, and so let me show you how I do that. Okay, so when I'm ready to mount this top strap button, I'll go ahead and place a piece of masking tape down over the horn here, and then I'll measure the center line between the face and the back of the body and mark that. The next thing I want to do is, when you're mounting the strap button on the telly, you want the strap button to be slightly inside of the, like, straight up and I guess the topmost point of the body, and you know, that is different on just about every Telecaster I've seen. So what I try to do is position it just a little bit to the inside, and you know, you'll note that the horn here doesn't come to a peak in sort of the center line of the horn, and that's about where I would rather put the button, is basically roughly in the center line of that horn, which angles it slightly inward, and that's going to allow it to hold the strap just a little bit better. Like, you know, it's not straight up and down, and it's not angled back. Like, I wouldn't want it to be back here. That would mean that the strap would pull off much easier. So I want it to be slightly inward of that. So just roughly line that up and give yourself a mark. Then you're going to take the button away, mark yourself a little X where the spot goes, and then make yourself a pilot there. I'm going to go off camera just a little bit and make sure that's exactly where I want it, and then we'll make the pilot. Okay, so that's pretty good. Let's go ahead and make our pilot mark. Center punch. Little tap with a hammer. And that gets us a little mark where we can start our drill. So this is what I was going for. I mean, it's not quite at the peak. It's a little bit inboard of the peak, if that makes sense. And because of the slightly different angle of the way the body's designed, it does fit slightly. I don't know how to describe it. I guess it's not quite perpendicular to the neck. It's just a little bit tilted in. If you can see my finger with relation to the way the neck is, it's kind of like that. So that's what I was going for. Just little things like that I think you know, make a build better than the average build. Just paying attention to the small things. Thought I'd show real quick what the pickguard's going to look like on here. I got this genuine Fender pickguard at a flea market, and it's a nice pickguard. I just don't know if I like the color. But anyway, the dark with the light pickguard, I think, does work pretty well. It works well against the nickel, and I guess it works well against the maple fretboard. I'm just trying to be a little bit picky about my build. I thought about using more of a gold color, and that's my real dilemma. So I may swap this one out for an aged white version of it, but those aged white ones, they kind of tend to look tan, and I don't want it to be tan. I want it to be sort of a gold color. So anyway, the things I have left to get, I'm actually in the process of bidding on a neck pickup on eBay. I've got a Fender noiseless that's going to go here in the middle, and then I've got a V-Mod pickup on the way to go here in the bridge position. The V-Mod is from the American Professional Tele, and it's kind of cool because it has Alnico 2 magnets on one side and Alnico 5 magnets on the other. And they say that the Alnico magnets are customized to the string position, so it makes for a better tone. I don't know if any of that's true. It might all be marketing BS, but it's a good selling point for the guitar. And then I've got a control plate coming. I actually already did the wiring on another spare control plate that I had, but the control plate that I had is 34 millimeters wide in this spot instead of 32, like an American version. So had to order that. Let's see, what else have I got? My string trees, I've got those in. My nuts all filed already because this was a functioning neck on a guitar before. Oh yeah, I've got the saddles coming in, and got the knobs already. So everything's in place. I'm just waiting on that control plate and this pickup, and then I can route this thing out. And oh, the switch. I don't have the 5-way switch. I'm going to use a 12-lug switch so that I can wire this up so that the neck and bridge can be independent, or they can be paired with the middle, or in the middle position, what I want is for only the neck and the bridge to be active and not the middle Strat style pickup. And I want that because that's the traditional Telecaster sound. You know, when the switch is in the middle position on a Telecaster, it's both of these pickups together, and not what that, you know, not that middle one that is unique to the Nashville style. So anyway, that's what I'm going for. I've been doing some measuring here, and I actually spent a little bit over an hour modifying this Pickguard. So I showed this earlier, but this is it's a real Fender Pickguard, but it wasn't a Fender Nashville Pickguard. So I downloaded some measurements from the internet, and I carefully measured out where this goes. I didn't have a routing template for it, so I just drilled a bunch of holes in here and then used a file to clean it out. I got it pretty close. It's not perfect, but you know, it actually works pretty well. It matches up pretty good with the sample pickup cover that I have. And I marked out the center line, and then I transferred the center line over to the body, and I also used my tape trick to locate the center of where the bridge was and the neck. So I made sure that the pickguard was aligned with those points, and I've sort of roughly sketched out where I want to route for that center pickup, and then I've made myself a little paper template that matches that route pretty easily. And then I'm going to take this paper template and transfer it over to a piece of plywood, and hopefully then I'll have sort of a router template. And the whole goal is to get this noiseless pickup to sit in between the two standard Telecaster pickups. Okay, well, I've never done this before, so we're going to try this together. So what I've done is I've transferred my paper cutout to a template, and I've laid out some tape on the body and some tape on the template, and then some double-sided tape in between the two pieces of tape. So that's what I'm going to try to keep this router template in place. And I've got the center lines marked. And that should place it right there. Now, it feels pretty stuck, so I feel good about it. Now, the other thing I needed to do was check my depth, and a couple different ways to do it, but the ruler's pretty easy, and it looks like my depth is 1 1/8. So I need to make sure my router is set to the same depth, and I've got this little trim router here. Yeah, it's pretty close. Not an exact science on the depth, but next thing I want to do is I need to go ahead and try to clean out some of the wood that's in there. So I think I'm just going to take a couple of Forstner bits and just hog that out as much as I can. So let me do that next. Sorry, my camera died there for a second. So anyway, I had to back it up about 1/8 of an inch, route it once, and dial it in another 1/8 of an inch deeper, and then route it again. So here's a result. I mean, it looks pretty good. Let me move the camera up for you. Looks pretty good. It's not perfect, but you know, I didn't buy a professional router template, and now I'm curious to see how this thing comes off. Okay, came off clean. My double-sided tape worked really well. That's double-sided duct tape in between those two layers of painter's tape. Painter's tape will allow me to remove the template really easy, and it allows me to save my template later. If I want to use that again, I can use it. So let's see here. How about my masking tape? Yeah, that looks nice. I'm really happy with that. Sorry, 1 second. I'm real happy with that, and it looks nice and uniform. It's kind of got that squared off shape like the modern Strat routes have, like the Mexican Strats. So anyway, no bigger than it has to be, and I'm happy with that. The next thing I'll need to do, I've got to get a wire from this cavity either into the next cavity down or into the control cavity. And I know that I can't be very far from the channel that's running here to here, so what I may do is just try to drill into that so I can get my wire through. So I dug around in my toolbox and I found the longest bit that I possibly had, and I think it's an 11/32, but that's okay. It's just the location of the hole that matters to me, and I'm using this template here just to protect my body as I drill. I think I'm going to go at a slight angle right at the corner of the pocket. That's perfect. I can tell I hit that channel that was already in the body. I can see where my wires are going to go. Yeah, that's perfect. So all I was after was, there's a channel that runs from here to here, and I was just after trying to tap into it. I got there, so we're good. Alright, well, one thing I learned from doing this, don't do it in a clean shop. I got sawdust everywhere when I was doing all this work, and I wish I hadn't done it in here, but I thought, you know, my carpet needs a little bit of cleanup anyway, and oh my god, did I make a mess. But I'm going to get this cleaned up a little bit more, and I'll keep cleaning up my work area. Then I'll do a little bit of test fitting of the parts, and we'll see where we're at. Okay, sorry for the background noise in the last segments. I forgot my air conditioner was running, but anyway, I got the Pickguard mounted, excuse me, mounted up, and this single coil fits fine. So I just won the auction on the neck pickup, so I gotta wait for that to come. But my V-Mod pickup showed up, so I'm going to mount that next. Okay, so let's talk bridge pickup for a minute. This is the last time I intend to mount this bridge, so there's one other thing that I want to do in addition to mounting the actual bridge and bridge pickup, and that's run a bridge wire. And I'm going to do the most simple way to do it. There is a way to do it where you actually drill a hole to mount this under the bridge, but I'm just going to let it sit over the side of this lip, and I'm just going to orient the wire so that it sits between a couple of the existing bridge screws, and that should pinch it down nicely. And then I've got to mount got to route the V-Mod pickup wires through this cavity as well. And it's a little bit of a balancing act to keep all this in place. But that ought to do it. I think I'm going to put it in the middle. Alright. So that's got it in the spot. Now we just screw it in. Alright, well that's mounted. The V-Mod pickup is real nice. It's I can say it's cloth wrapped, or cloth like rope wrapped, and also wax potted. So it deserves to be in the American Professional. But anyway, the middle pickup that I'm using is a noiseless, but I think it's a vintage, hot vintage noiseless or something like that. And the neck pickup I'm getting is just an American standard neck pickup. So the next thing that I'm waiting on after I get those parts and the saddles and the pickup here is this control plate, and I've got most of the wiring done on the temporary control plate that I have, but I need the control plate mounted, or at least in place, before I feel comfortable mounting this pickguard permanently. And I guess the last thing I did was I mounted the jack cup. So don't forget, I've got a video on jack cup installation, so go view my quick tips or the quick tips playlist to find that. That's about all I can do for this thing for today. So appreciate you watching again today, and I'll catch you on the next episode. Don't forget, like and subscribe if you like my stuff. Thanks a lot.